Read along. We will be reading Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. Solaris is a I don't know what it's about. I haven't read the blurb in the back. I don't want to. I like to go in blind. Some guy, I think his name is Kelvin. I hope they didn't change his name. Yeah, Chris Kelvin. Interesting. So, Solaris is a 19-something Polish story written by Stanislaw Lem about a planet covered by an ocean that is alien. It's alive, I think. I don't know if you know about the ghost, but there's like a ghost and there might be multiple ones. I don't know. I don't want to spoil it. I don't know if that's a spoiler. And I don't want to read the blurb, so I don't know if it's in the blurb. But I hear this is a really good classic sci-fi novel. If you know, and there's a Polish to English translation, which is really good, I hear. Unfortunately, I didn't know what I was buying. I just heard it was a classic sci-fi book, so I bought it. But apparently, I have the French to English translation, and apparently that's not the good version. Apparently, even the author himself said he didn't like it. He was very disappointed with it. It doesn't capture his original. Like, some themes are like diluted. Lines are diluted. Paragraphs are smaller. So I'm afraid. I'm terrified. I'm worried that this is going to be a bad book now, you know, because I don't have this is the French version. This isn't the Polish to English. This is Polish to English, Polish to French to English translation. And that makes me really hesitant. If you guys don't want me to read this right now, if a random viewer just pops in and says, no, I don't want to hear it, it's boring, this is our other option. The Red Pyramid by Rick Riordan, The Kane Chronicles, Book 1. So, your choice. This YA book that's about, I don't know, 500 pages. Or a 100 banger. Right? So, we're going to do this one, I think. I just don't want to wait another 500 pages before I read a sci-fi book, because I really love sci-fi, and from the research I've read, I'm not missing the general story of Solaris. So I know that there's a George Clooney version and even an older version of this, of a film adaptation. There's two film adaptations. One, the later one is the George Clooney version. I don't know if they ever made anything else after that film. I haven't seen it. I want to read this first. I know if you buy the Criterion book, the Criterion film, it comes with the book. So I'm actually curious now, if I bought that movie, if I would get the Polish to English translation. Let me check. I'm actually curious now, if I bought that movie, if I would get the Polish to English translation. Let me check. Hey, Beppu, he's a Criterion collector, and I just watch a lot of movie reviews with him, and on YouTube. And I thought I remember him saying that there was a book in the movie. Maybe it wasn't that one, and I don't want to watch the video. His videos are really long. I'll be back. I'm just gonna blow my nose. I don't think we're gonna cry. I hear that the Polish to English translation actually hits better. It won't necessarily cry, but it might break you a little bit. The Polish to English translation. I heard the French version is also doesn't get the prose right. But like I said, the main story is still there, and really that's why I really want to read it. I just have it. I bought it. I didn't know it was the French version, and I was like, well, I don't feel like waiting, a few days or whatever for my other version, and I just want to read it. So I want to read right now. I'm in a reading mood. Why not? I'm gonna just hit my vape real quick. Changing my cartridge, I think. Yeah. So Solaris. I'm excited. I think the main character's name is Kelvin. You basically know everything I know. I know an alien life form that is in it, and actually I forgot what it's supposed to look like. Maybe alien trees, alien. I know that there's alien water, like an alien ocean, but I've never read H.G. Wells, Arthur C. Clarke, misogynist. The guy who wrote Moon, Robert Heinlein. He's funny. That guy's funny. I want to read his Orphans of the Sky book. So I definitely want to read that. Welcome, Patricia McDonough. I waved at her, but she left, whatever. So we're going to read Solaris. It'll be fun. Yep, just setting up my vape. Casually. As you can see, the background has changed. I really dig this. I don't have a reason to use this background. I felt, I was reading Gilgamesh and it didn't feel right. I was reading Frankenstein and it also didn't feel right. Because, look at the size of me. And look at the size of those mushrooms. Don't they look alien? Yeah, that's why we're reading Solaris with this background. I saw it, and I was digging, and I said, let's use it. I went through some backgrounds. I don't think we have a lot, unfortunately. And so we'll be sticking with the library mostly. If I dig this, maybe I'll just keep using this one. Where did I put it? Hold on. Unfortunately, I smoke a little too much cigarettes, and I'm dying a little bit. My body is tired, and I'm 26, so I'm almost 30, guys. Wow. The big 3-0. I can't believe I'm almost 30. Almost 30 years old. That's crazy. That's crazy. Let's begin a novel. Solaris. By Stanislaw Lem. I am in for a treat. I heard as long as I keep in mind that whatever, because this version apparently diverts a diverts away from even the ending themes a little bit. So as long as I keep in mind whatever Stanislaw Lem is trying to say in this book, and just remember that that's the vision, whatever that is. I heard it. I should enjoy it. So let me just light a candle and we'll begin. An incense. Please, guys, if I miss something Solaris while reading out loud, feel free to comment and be like, "Oh, did you actually get the emotional impact?" Because I really want to do I've never really seen. I didn't do research. It's not like I went on YouTube and typed in reading reaction. I always see audiobooks on YouTube, and I've never really seen reading reactions. Maybe if I type it in, I'll find like 100,000, but I don't know anyone who does that, so maybe it's something we haven't really seen. Let's capitalize. Woo. Yes, baby. Yes, baby. It's America. You think look, the world's gonna the world is going to try to capitalize if that's what the US keeps on trying to put out, and go Mom Downey, so whatever. Let's read some Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. Alright. I'm excited. I've been waiting to read this. Watch it be trash. Solaris. Maybe I'll check out the Cyber Raid. I don't know how to pronounce it. Maybe I'll check it out, The Futurological Congress by Lem. I heard he's a good writer overall. Very philosophical-ish. I don't remember the word, but whatever. See? Stanislaw Lem, Solaris, translated from the French by Joanna Kilmartin and Steve Cox. So this one was copyrighted in 1961. Translation, copyright 1970. So this is a 1970 version. Yes, I know. Alright. A little disclaimer. You can't sell this book without a cover or whatever. Or none of it, actually. Yeah. Table of contents, and then I guess the story starts. The arrival. Whatever that means. Oh, I heard there's gonna be a lot of talking. There's like 200 pages. Do I really want to go through that, bro? To be honest, I don't know. Let's find out. Alright. At 1900 hours ship's time, I made my way to the launching bay. The men around the shaft stood aside to let me pass, and I climbed down into the capsule. Inside the narrow cockpit, there was scarcely room to move. I attached the hose to the valve on my spacesuit, and it inflated rapidly. From then on, I was incapable of making the smallest movement. There I stood, or rather hung suspended, enveloped in my pneumatic suit and yoked to the metal hull. Alright. I looked up. Through the transparent canopy, I could see a smooth, polished wall, and far above, Modard's head leaning over the top of the shaft. He vanished, and suddenly, I was plunged in darkness. The heavy protective cone and had been lowered into place. 8 times I heard the hum of the electric motors, which turned the screws, followed by the hiss of the shock absorbers. As my eyes grew accustomed to the dark, I could see the luminous circle of the solitary dial. A voice echoed in my headphones. "Ready, Kelvin." "Ready, Modard," I answered. "Don't worry about a thing. The station will pick you up in flight. Have a good trip." There was a grinding noise and the capsule swayed. My muscles tensed in spite of myself, but there was no further noise or movement. "When is liftoff?" I asked. I noticed a rustling outside like a shower of fine sand. "You're on your way, Kelvin. Good luck." Modard's voice sounded as close as before. Or is it Modard? I don't know. A wide slit opened at eye level, and I could see the stars. The Prometheus was orbiting in the region of Alpha in Aquarius, and I tried in vain to orient myself. A glittering dust filled my porthole. I could not recognize a single constellation. In this region of the galaxy, the sky was unfamiliar to me. I waited for the moment when I would pass near the first distinct star, but I was unable to isolate any of them. Their brightness was fading. They receded, merging into a vague purplish glimmer, the sole indication of the distance I had already traveled. My body rigid, sealed in its pneumatic envelope. A vague purplish glimmer, the sole indication of the distance I had already traveled. My body rigid, sealed in its pneumatic envelope. I was knifing through space with the impression of standing still in the void, my only distraction the steadily mounting heat. Suddenly, there was a shrill, "Whoa, hold on." That was written pretty damn good. I'm running out of battery. I have 2%. I don't know what to do. It's because if I charge my phone, and I'm on live, so it doesn't translate properly. Oh wait, I don't know. Am I sideways now? I think I'm sideways. See, that's not on purpose, guys. You just have to deal with it, really. I could damage my phone, keep it up, I know that's what y'all want. I don't want to damage my phone, though. But I need to charge my phone. You see what I'm saying? How do I do this? Maybe like this, right? I almost got it, guys. I almost fucking got it. Oh shit. My phone acting crazy. Oh my gosh. I almost got it. Ouch. I'm trying to have it, chill. What the fuck? I'm a bug, she says. Sorry, that was my cousin texting. God knows what. Back that needs support. Okay. That's the back that needs support. Okay. Maybe I can do this. Okay, I give up because we need to read. We have to read. I can't keep it playing. Long upload, Alright. Alright, I wanted to reread that fire part, I waited for the moment when I could pass the near... Okay. A glittering dust filled my porthole. I could not recognize a single constellation. In this region of the galaxy, the sky was unfamiliar to me. I waited for the moment when I would pass near the first distinct star, but I was unable to isolate any one of them. Their brightness was fading, they receded, merging into a vague, purplish glimmer. The sole indication of the distance I had already traveled. My body rigid, sealed in its pneumatic envelope, I was knifing through space with the impression of standing still in the void. My only distraction, the steadily mounting heat. Suddenly, there was a shrill, grating sound, like a steel blade being drawn across a sheet of wet glass. This was it, the descent. If I had not seen the figures racing across a dial, I would not have noticed the change in direction. The stars had vanished long since. My gaze was swallowed up on the pale reddish glow of infinity. I could hear my heart thudding heavily. I could feel the coolness from the air conditioning on my neck, although my face seemed to be on fire. I regretted not having caught a glimpse of the Prometheus, but the ship must have been out of sight by the time the automatic controls had raised the shutter of my porthole. The capsule was shaken by a sudden jolt, then another. The whole vehicle began to vibrate. Filtered through the insulating layers of outer skins, penetrating my pneumatic cocoon, the vibration reached me and ran through my entire body. The image of the dial shivered and multiplied, and its phosphorescence spread out in all directions. I felt no fear. I had not undertaken this long voyage only to overshoot my target. I called into the microphone. "Station Solaris! Station Solaris! Station Solaris! I think I am leaving the flight path. Correct my course. Station Solaris! This is the Prometheus capsule. Over." I had missed the precious moment when the planet first came into view. Now it was spread out before my eyes, flat and already immense. Nevertheless, from the appearance of its surface, I judged that I was still at a great height above it, since I had passed that imperceptible frontier after which we measured the distance that separates us from a celestial body in terms of altitude. I was falling now. I was falling. Now I had the sensation of falling, even with my eyes closed. I quickly reopened them. I did not want to miss anything there was to be seen. Do you hear the redundancy? Apparently the original version doesn't do that. It makes me not want to finish it. I have a headache. I don't know why. Okay. I waited a moment in silence before trying once more to make contact. No response. Successive bursts of static came through the headphones against a background of deep, low-pitched murmuring, which seemed to me the very voice of the planet itself. A veil of mist covered the orange-colored sky, obscuring the porthole. Instinctively, I hunched myself up as much as my inflated suit would allow, but almost at once, I realized that I was passing through cloud. Then, as though sucked upwards, the cloud mass lifted. I was gliding, half in light, half in shadow, the capsule revolving upon its own vertical axis. At last, through the porthole, the gigantic ball of the sun appeared, looming up on the left and disappearing to the right. A distant voice reached me through the murmuring and crackling. "Station Solaris calling. Station Solaris calling. The capsule will land at 0 hour. I repeat, the capsule will land at 0 hour. Stand by for countdown. 250, 249, 248. The words were punctured by sharp screeching sounds. Automatic equipment was intoning the phrases of the reception drill. This was surprising, to say the least. As a rule, men on space stations were eager to greet a newcomer, especially if he was arriving direct from Earth. I did not have long to ponder this, for the sun's orbit which had so far encircled me, shifted unexpectedly, and the incandescent disc appeared now to the right, now to the left, seeming to dance on the planet's horizon. I was swinging like a giant pendulum, while the planet, its surface wrinkled with purplish blue and black furrows, rose up in front of me like a wall. Wait. I need a drink of water real quick. Fuck. It's getting hard to read. It's not hard to read, it's just, fuck. I'm using a lot of my imagination power. Alright. Nah. Let's do this. This is the farthest I ever got in the book, by the way. I've only ever read like the first couple lines. Few lines actually, but that's it. Alright. Oh, my cat wants to say hi. Where were we? 248. The words were punctured by sharp screeching sounds. Automatic equipment was intoning the phrases of the reception drill. This was surprising to say the least. As a rule, men on space stations were eager to greet a newcomer, especially if he was arriving direct from Earth. I did not have long to ponder this, for the sun's orbit, which had so far encircled me, shifted unexpectedly, and the incandescent disc appeared now to the right, now to the left, seeming to dance on the planet's horizon. I was swinging like a giant pendulum, while the planet, its surface wrinkled with purplish blue and black furrows. Rose up in front of me like a wall. As my head began to spin, I caught sight of a tiny pattern of green and white dots. It was the station's positioning marker. Something detached itself with a snap from the cone of the capsule. With a fierce jerk, the long parachute collar released its hoops, and the noise which followed reminded me irresistibly of Earth. For the first time after so many months, the moaning of the wind. Interesting. Everything went quickly after this. So far, I had known that I must be falling. Now I could see it for myself. The green and white checkerboard grew rapidly, and I could see that it was painted on the elongated silvery body shaped like a well. Its flanks bristling with radar antennae. This metal colossus, which was pierced with several rows of shadowy apertures, was not resting on the planet itself, but suspended above it, casting upon the inky surface beneath an ellipsoidal shadow of... Whoa, hold on. Fuck. I have a headache. I feel like I should read the original version, bro. I wonder what Lem said here. Let's move on. I could make out the slate-colored ripples of the ocean. Oh, wait, I skipped. The metal colossus, which was pierced with several rows of shadowy apertures, was not resting on the planet itself, but suspended above it, casting upon the inky surface beneath an ellipsoidal shadow of even deeper blackness. I could make out the slate-colored ripples of the ocean, stirring with a faint motion, Suddenly, the clouds rose to a great height, rimmed with a blinding crimson glare. The lurid sky became gray. Distant and flat, everything was blotted out. I was falling in a spin. A sharp jolt and the capsule righted itself. Through the porthole, I could see the ocean once more. The waves like crests of glittering quicksilver, the hoops of the parachute, the cord snapped, flapped furiously over the waves, carried on the wind. The capsule gently descended, swaying with a peculiar slow motion rhythm imposed on it by the artificial magnetic field. There was just time to glimpse the launching pads and the parabolic reflectors of two radio telescopes on top of their pierced steel towers. What? Pierced steel towers. There you go. Fuck. Interesting. So, the sky is colored. Well, he said it turned gray, but when we were like first landing into the planet, I think was going on. He said there was like black furrows and like wrinkles, purpley blue. So imagine just clouds swirling. I'm imagining. I don't know. So I have a feeling that this machine, which is the shape of a well, is where we're going, and I don't think it's a real well. I think it's a space station of some sort. It's also suspended in the air, by the way. Let's go back a page and see how it was introduced. The well. No, it's on the same page. This well colossus, which was pierced with with several rows of shadowy apertures. Okay, let's go before. I could see that it was painted on an elongated, silvery body shaped like a well, its flanks bristling with radar antennae. So, I think it is a station of some sort. That they probably landed here from maybe, let's say, an Earth mission, a Solaris mission. Cause Solaris is a space station of some sort, or some station, I don't know. With the clang of steel rebounding against steel, the capsule came to a stop. A hatch opened, and with a long, harsh sigh, the metal shell which imprisoned me reached the end of its voyage. I heard the mechanical voice from the control center. Station Solaris, 0 and 0. The capsule has landed. Out. Feeling a vague pressure on my chest and a disagreeable heaviness in the pit of my stomach, I seized the control levers with both hands and cut the contacts. A green indicator lit up arrival. The capsule opened, and the pneumatic padding shoved me gently from behind, so that in order to keep my balance, I had to take a step forward. With a muffled sigh of resignation, the spacesuit the spacesuit expelled its air. I was free. I found myself inside a vast silver funnel, as high as a cathedral nave. A cluster of colored pipes ran down the sloping walls and disappeared into rounded orifices. I have to see what that means. An orifice is just a opening of a pipe, I guess, of some sort of tube. This is my sleeping shirt. That's why it's so small. I bought the wrong size and I just sleep with it now. I'm sure someone's wondering why it's so tight. Where are we? I turned around. The ventilation shafts were roaring, sucking in the poisonous gases from the planet's atmosphere, which had infiltrated when my capsule had landed inside the station. Empty, resembling a burst cocoon, the cigar-shaped capsule stood upright, unfolded by a calyx mounted on a steel base. The outer casing, scorched during flight, had turned a dirty brown. I went down into a small stairway. The metal floor below had been coated with a heavy-duty plastic. In places, the wheels of trolleys carrying rockets had worn through this plastic covering to expose the bare steel beneath. The throbbing of the ventilator ceased abruptly, and there was a total silence. I looked around me, a little uncertain, waiting for someone to appear, but there was no sign of life. Only a neon arrow glowed, pointing towards a moving walkway which was silently unreeling. That's scary. That's kind of scary. Maybe I should close my door. That was a little eerie. Can you imagine landing in this planet? Why did we travel so fast? Weren't we just on Earth? I swear to... Bro. I promise, I just read that it didn't say he was on Earth, but I swear he was walking into the space station. He got inside. Look, let's find out right now. Check this out. I made my way to the launching bay. The men around... Oh. No, this is a different planet. I see. So, is this like... Is this planet I wonder if this planet we're on is an orbiting... is part of the solar system in this universe? Fuck. Man. And then we land on this planet, he's alone. And then there's a yellow light. There's pipes everywhere. The station is eroding. We're gonna go back and read that again. That was really good. The throbbing of the ventilator ceased abruptly, and there was I want to read the plastic. I went down a small stairway. The metal floor below had been coated with a heavy-duty plastic. In places, the wheels of trolleys carrying rockets had been worn through this plastic covering to expose the bare steel beneath. The throbbing of the ventilator ceased abruptly, and there was a total silence. I looked around me, a little uncertain, waiting for someone to appear, but there was no sign of life. Only a neon arrow glowed, pointing towards a moving walkway which was silently unreeling. I allowed myself to be carried forward. Hold on. Pointing towards a moving walkway. The ceiling of the hall descended in a fine parabolic arc until it reached the entrance to a gallery, in whose recesses gas cylinders, gauges, parachutes, crates, and a quantity of other objects were scattered about in untidy heaps. The moving walkway set me down at the far end of the gallery, on the threshold of a dome. Here there was an even greater disorder. A pool of oily liquid spread out from beneath a pile of oil drums. A nauseating smell hung in the air,
Footprints in a series of gluttonous smears went off in all directions. The oil drums were covered with a tangle of ticker tape, torn paper, and other waste. Let me blow my nose. I'm on page 6. I have cat allergies, and it killed me. Oh man. My cat is killing me. I have pills, but she took them and she played with them and I don't know where they went. Can you believe that? Alright, let's continue. Another green arrow directed me to the central door. Behind this stretched a narrow corridor, hardly wide enough for two men to walk side by side, lit by slabs of glass let into the ceiling. Then another door, painted in green and white squares, which was ajar. I went in. The cabin had concave walls and a big panoramic window, which a glowing mist had tinged with purple. Outside, the murky waves slid silently past. Open cupboards lined the walls, filled with instruments, books, dirty glasses, vacuum flasks, all covered with dust. 5 or 6 small trolleys and some collapsible chairs cluttered up the stained floor. One chair alone was inflated, its back raised. In this armchair there was a little thin man, his face burnt by the sun, the skin on his nose and cheeks coming away in large flakes. I recognized him as Snow, a cybernetics expert and Guibarian's deputy. In his time, he had published articles of great originality in the Solaris Annual. It so happened that I had never had the opportunity of meeting him. He was wearing a mesh shirt which allowed the gray hairs of his sunken chest to poke through here and there, and canvas trousers with a great many pockets. Mechanic trousers which had once been white but now were stained at the knees and covered with holes from chemical burns. He was holding one of those pear-shaped plastic flasks which are used in spaceships, not equipped with internal gravitational systems. Snow's eyes widened in amazement as he looked up and saw me. Oh my God, I thought this fool was dead. The flask dropped from his fingers and bounced several times, spilling a few drops of transparent liquid. Blood drained from his face. I was too astonished to speak, and this dumb show continued for so long that Snow's terror gradually communicated itself to me. I took a step forward. He cringed in his chair. Snow? He quivered as though I had struck him. Gazing at me in indescribable horror, he gasped out, "I don't know you." His voice croaked. "I don't know you. What do you want?" The spilt liquid was quickly evaporating. I caught a whiff of alcohol. Had he been drinking? Was he drunk? What was he so terrified of? I stood in the middle of the room. My legs were trembling, my ears roared as though they were stuffed with cotton wool. I had the impression that the ground was giving way beneath my feet. Beyond the curved window, the ocean rose and fell with regularity. Snow's bloodshot eyes never left me. His terror seemed to have abated, but his expression of invincible disgust remained. Huh. Interesting. Huh. Interesting. All right. Let's see. Let's see how Lem nails it. What's the matter? Are you ill? I whispered. You seem worried, he said, his voice hollow. You actually seem worried. So it's like that now, is it? But why concern yourself about me? I don't know you. Where's Guibarian? I asked. He gave a gasp and his glassy eyes lit up for an instant. Guy Bear, no, no! His whole frame shook with stifled, hysterical laughter. Wow. That he seemed to calm down a little. So it's Guyberian you come for, is it? Poor old Guyberian. What do you want with him? His words, or rather, his tone of voice expressed hatred and defiance. It was as though I had suddenly ceased to represent a threat to him. Bewildered, I mumbled, "What? Where is he?" "Don't you know?" Obviously, he was drunk and raving. My anger rose. I should have controlled myself and left the room, but I had lost patience. I shouted, "That's enough! How could I know where he is, since I've only just arrived?" Oh, wow. My neck. Like, I can't tell why, but it's like all fucked up. I could feel like my tendons moving. That's pretty crazy. Maybe I just need more water. Wow. You can't be there, bro. My cat's being dumb. Move! Man, this let's finish the chapter and I'll fix everything. Maybe. That's enough. How could I know where he is since I've only just arrived? Snow, what's going on here? His jaw dropped. Once again, he caught his breath and his eyes gleamed with a different light. He seized the arms of his chair with both hands and stood up with difficulty. His knees were trembling. What? You've just arrived? Where have you come from? He asked, almost sober. From Earth. What? So he is from Earth. Oh, but he took off from a fucking different planet. I retorted angrily. Maybe you've heard of it? Not that anyone would ever guess it. From Earth? Good God. Then you must be Kelvin. Of course. Why are you looking at me like that? What's so startling about me? He blinked rapidly. Nothing, he said, wiping his forehead. Nothing, forgive me. Kelvin, it's nothing, I assure you. I was simply surprised. I didn't expect to see you. What do you mean you didn't expect to see me? You were notified months ago, and Modard radioed only today from the Prometheus. Yes, indeed. Only, you see, we're a bit disorganized at the moment. So I see, I answered dryly. Snow walked around me, inspecting my atmosphere suit, which was standard issue, with the usual harness of wires and cables attached to the chest. He coughed and rubbed his bony nose. Perhaps you would like a bath? It would do you good. It's the blue door on the other side. Thanks. I know the station layout. You must be hungry. No. Where's Guyberian? Without answering, he went over to the window. From behind, he looked considerably older. His clothes, cropped hair was gray and deep wrinkles creased his sunburnt neck. I'm like, so Guyberian's dead, right? The wave crests glinted through the window, the colossal rollers rising and falling in slow motion. Watching the ocean like this one had the illusion, it was surely an illusion, that the station was moving imperceptibly, as though teetering on an invisible base. Then it would seem to recover its equilibrium, only to lean the opposite way, with the same lazy movement. Thick foam, the color of blood, gathered in the troughs of the waves. For a fraction of a second, my throat tightened and I thought longingly of the Prometheus and its strict discipline, the memory of an existence which suddenly seemed a happy one, now gone forever. Interesting. That was pretty good writing. I like that passage a lot. It's a pretty good chapter so far. I might actually kill this book very soon. I don't know how long it'll take me to read Rick Riordan. The pages seem simple, but it's 500 damn pages, bro. That's a lot. That's more than any Percy Jackson book. But I'll do it. I read Dracula in 6 months. Snow turned round, nervously rubbing his hands together. Listen, he said abruptly. Except for me, there's no one around for the moment. You'll have to make do with my company for today. Call me Ratface. Don't argue. You know me by my photograph. Just imagine we're old friends. Everyone calls me a Ratface. There's nothing I can do about it. Obstinately, I repeated my question. Where is Guyberian? He blinked again. I'm sorry to have received you like that. It's not exactly my fault. I had completely forgotten. A lot has been happening here, you see. By the way, the blood on the waves, oh, that's great writing. I don't think I've ever read it in an analogy like that. That's dope. I might have to do that, but I can't now because he did it. But damn, that was really good. Is that what the red is? Is that a red wave? I don't know. You know what I mean? But I don't know. This is a boring cover, but it's still nice. Let's move on. Where was I? It's all right. But what about Guyberian? Isn't he on the station? Is he on an observation flight? Snow was gazing at a tangled mass of cables. No, he hasn't left the station, and he won't be flying. The fact is, my ears were still blocked and I was finding it more and more difficult to hear. What? What do you mean? Where is he then? I should think you might guess, he answered in a changed voice, looking me coldly in the eyes. I shivered. He was drunk, but he knew what he was saying. There's been an accident? He nodded vigorously, watching my reactions closely. When? This morning. At dawn? Oh my god, it happened this morning? That even got me. By now, my sensations were less violent. This succinct exchange of questions and answers had calmed me. I was beginning to understand Snow's strange behavior. What kind of accident? Why not go to your cabin and take off your spacesuit? Come back in, say, an hour's time. I hesitated. All right, I said finally. As I made to leave, he called me back. Wait. He had an uneasy look, as if he wanted to add something, but was finding it difficult to bring out the words. After a pause, he said, There used to be 3 of us here. Now with you, there are 3 of us again. Do you know Sartorius? In the same way as I knew you, only from his photographs. He's up there, in the laboratory, and I doubt if he'll come down before dark, but in any case, you'll recognize him. If you should see anyone else, someone who isn't me or Sartorius, you understand then. Then what? I must be dreaming. All this could only be a dream. The inky waves, the crimson gleams under the low-hanging sun, and this little man who had gone back to his armchair, sitting there as before, hanging his head. Wait. The inky waves, the crimson gleams under, and this little man who had gone back to his armchair, sitting there as before, hanging his head and staring at the heap of cables. In that case, do nothing. Who could I see? I flared up. A ghost? You think I'm mad, of course. No, I'm not mad. I can't say anything more for the moment. Perhaps. Who knows? Nothing will happen. But don't forget, I warned you. Don't be so mysterious. What's all this about? Keep a hold on yourself. Be prepared to meet anything. It sounds impossible. I know, but try. It's the only advice I can give you. I can't think of anything better. But what could I possibly meet? I shouted. Seeing him sitting there looking sideways at me, his sunburnt face drooping with fatigue, I found it difficult to contain myself. I wanted to grab him by the shoulders and shake him. Painfully dragging the words out one by one, he answered, I don't know. In a way, it depends on you. Hallucinations, you mean? No, it's real enough. Don't attack. Whatever you do, remember that. So I know, let's finish it. We're not on Earth, you know. What are you getting at? I could hardly recognize the sound of my own voice. We're not on Earth, you know. A Polytherian form, I shouted. There's nothing human about them. I was about to rush at him to drag him out of the trance, prompted, apparently, by his crazy theories when he murmured, That's why they're so dangerous. Remember what I've told you, and be on your guard. What happened to Guiberian? He did not answer. What is Sartorius doing? Come back in an hour. I turned and went out. As I closed the door behind me, I took a last look at him. Tiny, shrunken, his head in his hands, and his elbows. Bro, my fucking AC turned on and it freaked me out. I'm closing my fucking door. We're gonna leave that motherfucker closed. Oh, I don't know. I'm kind of spooked. That's all. I'm just spooked. I can't imagine what The Shining is like. You know, it was either gonna be this, Kane Chronicles, or Salem's Lot. I chose this because it's, really fast. I'll read Rick Riordan, and then I'll read Salem's Lot. Oh yeah, baby. Tiny, shrunken, his head in his hands and his elbows resting on his damed knees. He sat there, motionless. It was only then that I noticed the dried bloodstains on the backs of his hands. So, the original version, it says, it was only then that I noticed the dried bloodstains on the knuckles of his hands. But Law says it even better than that. You see how it's different? This says the backs of his hands. So, that's just, those are some of the changes. It's still the same thing, but I don't know. That bothers me. I'll be back. I'm just going to blow my nose. They could have done a better translation for sure. I don't know why you would say backs. The backs of his hands? My knuckles, dog. Can you imagine being the author and that's what they wrote? That's why he didn't like it. He said, nah. And who messed it up? The French. It was the French. Okay, I'm gonna let that charge, and I'm gonna use a real phone charger because I'm charging my portable charger while charging my, cellular device. And I don't think you're supposed to do that. It's like my phone's burning up. Alright. Where are we? I like where this is going. Alright. Chapter 2. The Solaris.
In the empty corridor, I stood for a moment in front of the closed door. I noticed a strip of plaster carelessly stuck on one of the panels. Penciled on it was the word man. At the sight of this family scribbled word, I had a sudden longing to return to Snow for company, but I thought better of it. His crazy warning still ringing in my ears. I started off down the narrow, tubular passage which was filled with the moaning of the wind. My shoulders bowed under the weight of the spacesuit. On tiptoe, half-consciously fleeing from some invisible watcher, I found 2 doors on my left and 2 more on my right. I read the occupants' names. Dr. Guyberian, Dr. Snow, Dr. Sartorius. On the 4th, there was no nameplate. I hesitated, then pressed down the handle, down gently, and slowly opened the door. As I did so, I had a premonition, amounting almost to a certainty, that there was someone inside. I went in. Ooh. There was no one. That shit's funny, dog. He said there was nobody. That's creepy, actually. Huh. He said, I'm almost certain. I'm certain. There's someone inside. He goes inside. No one's inside. Interesting. Another wide panoramic window, almost as large as the one in the cabin where I had found Snow, overhung the ocean, which, sunlit on this side, shone with an oleaginous gleam, as though the waves selected a reddish oil. A crimson glow pervaded the whole room, whose layout suggested a ship's cabin. On one side, flanked by bookshelf-filled shelves, a retractable bed stood against the wall. What the hell is it? Oleaginous. Let me go find it. It means greasy. Wow. On the other, between the numerous lockers, hung nickel frames enclosing a series of aerial photographs stuck end to end with adhesive tape, and racks full of test tubes and retorts plugged with cotton wool. Wow, I have no idea what I just read. Alright. Okay. 2 tiers of whole enamel boxes took up the space between the window. I lifted some of the lids. The boxes were crammed with all kinds of instruments, intertwined with plastic tubing. The corners of the rooms were occupied by a refrigerator, a tap and demisting device. A tap and hold on. The corners of the room were occupied by a refrigerator, a tap and a demisting device. For lack of space on the big table by the window, a microscope stood on the floor. Turning around, I saw a tall locker beside the entrance door. It was half open, filled with atmosphere suits, laboratory smocks, insulated aprons, underclothing, boots for planetary exploration, and aluminum cylinders, portable oxygen gear. 2 sets of this equipment, complete with masks, hung down from one of the knobs of the vertical bed. Everywhere there was the same chaos, a general disorder which someone had made a hasty attempt to disguise. I sniffed the air. I could detect a faint smell of chemical reagents and traces of something more acrid. Chlorine?
Instinctively, I searched the ceiling for the grills over the air vents. Strips of paper attached to the bars were fluttering gently. The air was circulating normally. In order to make a relatively free space around the bed, between the bookshelves and the locker, I cleared 2 chairs of their litter of books, instruments, and tools which I piled haphazardly on the other side of the room. I pulled out a bracket to hang up my spacesuit, took hold of my zip fastener, then let go again. Deterred by the confused idea that I was depriving myself of a shield, I could not bring myself to remove it. Once more, I looked around the room. I checked that the door was shut tight and that it had no lock, and after a brief hesitation, I dragged some of the heaviest boxes to the doorway. Having built this temporary barricade, he barricaded himself, like real quick, because he's nervous. You know what I mean? He doesn't know if someone's watching him. I freed myself from the clanking armor in 3 quick movements. A narrow looking glass built into the locker room reflected part of the room, and out of the corner of my eye I caught sight of something moving. I jumped, but it was only my own reflection, bitch. Oh, no, it is. Oh, reflection. You. Damn, you scaredy cat. Underneath the spacesuit, my overalls were drenched with sweat. I took them off and pulled back a sliding door, revealing the bright tiled walls of a small bathroom. A long flat box lay in the hollow at the base of the shower. I carried it into the room. As I put it down, the spring lid flew up and disclosed a number of compartments filled with strange objects, misshapen forms in a dark metal, grotesque replicas of the instruments in the racks. Not one of the tools was usable. They were blunted, distorted, melted as though they had been in a furnace. Strangest of all, even the porcelain handles, virtually incombustible, were twisted out of shape. Even at maximum temperature, no laboratory furnace could have melted them, only perhaps an atomic pile. I took a Geiger counter from the pocket of my spacesuit, but when I held it over the debris, it remained dumb. Okay, interesting. By now I was wearing nothing but my underwear. I tore it off, flung it across the room, and dashed under the shower. The shock of the water did me good. Turning beneath the scalding, needle-sharp jets, I scrubbed myself vigorously, splashing the walls, expelling, eradicating from my skin the thick scum of morbid apprehensions which had pervaded me since my arrival. I rummaged in the locker and found a work suit, which could also be worn under an atmosphere suit. As I pocketed my few belongings, I felt something hard tucked between the pages of my notebook. It was a key, the key to my apartment, down there on Earth. Absently, I turned it over my fingers. Finally, I put it down on the table. It occurred to me suddenly that I might need a weapon. An all-purpose pocket knife was hardly sufficient for my needs, but I had nothing else, and I was not going to start searching for a gamma pistol or something else of the kind. Gamma pistol? Gamma pistol? That's fucking dope. He's smart. You know why? Because gamma rays are some of the strongest energy waves in all of the EMS spectrum. If you want to go higher, they're called like gamma plus or something like that. So a gamma pistol, it's pretty intense. Imagine that. Those are future weapons that people talk about. Yeah, my cat. Let's continue. All right.
I rummaged in my locker and found a work suit, which could also be worn under an atmosphere suit. Hold on. Okay. As I pocketed my belongings, I felt something hard tugged between the pages. It was a key, and then down there on Earth, suddenly I turned it over. My feeling, I put it down on the table. He wants a knife. Okay, I read that part. I sat down on a tubular stool in the middle of the clear space, glad to be alone and seeing with satisfaction that I had over half an hour to myself. By nature, I have always been scrupulous about keeping engagements, whether important or trivial. The hands of the clock, its face divided into 24 hours, pointed to 7 o'clock. What? The sun was setting. 700 hours here was 2,000 hours on board the Prometheus. Huh. Interesting. On Modard's screen, Solaris will be nothing but an indistinct dust cloud mingled with the stars. But would the Prometheus matter to me now? I closed my eyes. I could hear no sound except the moaning of the ventilation pipes and a faint trickling of water from the bathroom. If I had understood correctly, it was only a short time since Guybarian had died. What had they done with his body? Had they buried it? No, that was impossible on this planet. I puzzled over the question for a long time, concentrating on the fate of the corpse. Then, realizing the absurdity of my thoughts, I began to prep up and down. My toe knocked against a canvas bag half buried under a pile of books. I bent down and picked it up. It contained a small bottle made of colored glass, so light that it might have been blown out of paper. I held it up to the window in the purplish glow of the somber twilight, now overhung by a sooty fog. What was I doing? Allowing myself to be distracted by irrelevances, by the first trifle which came to hand. I gave a start. The lights had gone on, activated by a photoelectric relay. The sun had set. What would happen next? I was so tense that the sensation of an empty space behind me became unbearable. In an attempt to pull myself together, I took a chair over to the bookshelves and chose a book familiar to me, the second volume of the early monograph by Hughes and Ugel, Historia Solaris. I rested the thick, solidly bound volume on my knees and began leafing through the pages. The discovery of Solaris dated back for about 100 years when I was born. The planet orbits 2 suns, a red sun and a blue sun. For 45 years after its discovery, no spacecraft had visited Solaris. At that time, the Gamow-Shapley theory that life was impossible on planets which are satellites of 2 solar bodies was firmly believed. The orbit is constantly being modified by variations in the gravitational pull in the course of its revolutions around the 2 suns. Due to these fluctuations in gravity, the orbit is either flattened or distended, and the elements of life, if they appear, are inevitably destroyed, either by intense heat or extreme drop in temperature. These changes take place at intervals estimated in millions of years, very short intervals, that is, according to the laws of astronomy and biology. Evolution takes hundreds of millions of years, if not a billion. According to the earliest calculations in 500,000 years time, Solaris would be drawn 1.5 of an astronomic unit nearer to its red sun, and 1,000,000 years after that would be engulfed by the incandescent star. That's a good way to use incandescent. A few decades later, however, observations seem to suggest that the planet's orbit was in no way subject to the expected variations. It was stable as the orbit of the planets in our own solar system. The observations and calculations were reworked with great precision. They simply confirmed the original conclusions. Solaris's orbit was unstable. A modest item under the hundreds of planets discovered annually, to which official statistics devoted only a few lines defining the characteristics of their orbits. Solaris eventually began to attract special attention and attain a high rank.
4 years after the promotion, overflying the planet with the Lacon and two auxiliary craft, the Otenskjold expedition undertook a study of Solaris. This expedition being in the nature of preliminary, not to say improvised reconnaissance, the scientists were not equipped for a landing. Otenskjold placed a quantity of automatic observation satellites into equatorial and polar orbit, their principal function being to measure the gravitational pull. In addition, a study was made of the planet's surface, which was covered by an ocean dotted with insurmountable flat low-lying islands whose combined area is less than that of Europe, although the diameter of Solaris is a fifth greater than Earth's. These expanses of barren rocky territory, irregularly distributed, are largely concentrated in the southern hemisphere. At the same time, the composition of the atmosphere, devoid of oxygen, was analyzed, and precise measurements of the planet's density, from which its albedo and other astronomical characteristics were determined. As was foreseeable, no trace of life was discovered, either on the islands or in the ocean. During the following 10 years, Solaris became the center of attraction for all observatories concerned with the study of this region of space, for the planet had in the meantime shown the astonishing faculty of maintaining an orbit which ought, without any shadow of doubt, to have been unstable. The problem almost developed into a scandal, since the results of the observations could only be inaccurate. Attempts were made in the interest of science to denounce and discredit various scientists or else the computers they use. Lack of funds delayed the departure of proper Solaris expedition for 3 years. Finally, Shanahan assembled his team and obtained 3 sea-tonnage vessels from the Institute, the largest starships of the period. A year and a half before the arrival of the expedition, which left from the region of Alpha in Aquarius, a second exploration fleet, acting in the name of the Institute, placed an automatic satellite, Luna 247, into orbit around Solaris. This satellite, after 3 successive reconstructions and data it supplied, confirmed beyond doubt that the findings of the Otenskjold expedition, considering the active character of the ocean movements. One of Shanahan's ships remained in orbit while the 2 others, after some preliminary attempts, landed in the southern hemisphere in a rocky area about 600 miles square. The work of the expedition lasted 18 months and was carried out under favorable conditions. Apart from an unfortunate accident brought by the malfunction of some apparatus. In the meantime, the scientists had split into 2 opposing camps. The bone of contention was the ocean. On the basis of the analysis, it had been accepted that the ocean was an organic formation. At that time, no one had yet dared to call it living. But while the biologists considered it as a primitive formation, a sort of gigantic entity, a fluid cell, unique and monstrous, which they called pre-biological, surrounding the globe, with a colloidal envelope several miles thick in places. The astronomers and physicists asserted that it must be an organic structure, extraordinarily evolved. According to them, the ocean possibly exceeded terrestrial organic structures in complexity, since it was capable of exerting an active influence on the planet's orbital path. Certainly no other factor could be found that might explain the behavior of Solaris. Moreover, the planet physicists had established a relationship between certain processes of the plasmic ocean and the local measurements of gravitational pull, which altered according to the matter transformations of the ocean. Consequently, it was the physicists, rather than the biologists, who put forward the paradoxical formulation of a plasmic mechanism, implying by this a structure possibly without life as we conceive it, but capable of performing functional activities on an astronomical scale. It should be emphasized It was during this quarrel, whose reverberations soon reached the ears of the most eminent authorities, that the Gamma Shapley doctrine, unchallenged for 80 years, was shaken for the first time. There were some who continued to support the Gamma Shapley contentions to the effect that the ocean had nothing to do with life, that it was neither prebiological or prebiological, but a geological formation of extreme rarity. It is true, with the unique ability to stabilize the orbit of Solaris, despite the variations in the forces of attraction. Le Chatelier's law was enlisted in support of this argument. The challenge this conservative attitude, new hypotheses were advanced, of which Civito Vitas was one of the most elaborate, proclaiming that the ocean was the product of a diabolical development on the basis of its earliest pre-oceanic form, a solution of slow-reacting chemical elements, and by the force of circumstances, the threat to its existence from the changes of orbit. It had reached in a single bound to the stage of homeostatic oceans without passing through all the stages of terrestrial evolution. By passing the unicellular and multicellular phases. This is crazy. What the fuck? The vegetable and the animal, the development of a nervous and cerebral system. In other words, unlike terrestrial organisms, it had not taken hundreds of millions of years to adapt itself to its environment, culminating in the first representatives of a species endowed with reason, but dominated its environment immediately. This was an original point of view. Nevertheless, the means whereby this colloidal envelope was able to stabilize the planet's orbit remain unknown. For almost a century, devices had existed capable of creating artificial magnetic and gravitational fields. They were called gravitors, but no one could even guess how this formless glue could produce an effect which the gravitors achieve by the use of complicated nuclear reactions at enormously high temperatures. The newspapers of the day, exciting the curiosity of the layman and the anger of the scientists, were full of the most improbable embroideries on the theme of the Solaris mystery. One reporter going so far as to suggest that the ocean was no less a distant relation to our electric eels. My eyes. I need my water real quick. All right. It's pretty fun so far. Unfortunately, the author is going on a science tangent, so let's keep it going. One reported going on as to suggest the ocean no less a distant relation to our electric eels. Just when a measure of success had been achieved in unraveling this problem, it turned out, as often happened subsequently in the field of Solaris studies, that the explanation replaced one enigma by another, perhaps even more baffling. Others observations. Shit. Alright. I'm gonna end the live after this chapter. I'm tired and I have to wake up soon. I wish we could keep reading. Alright, it's not working. I have a lot of pages left too. I might actually quit now.
It turned out, as often happens subsequently in the field of Solaris studies, that the explanation replaced one enigma by another, perhaps even more baffling. Observations showed at least that the ocean did not react according to the same principles as our gravitors, which in any case would have been impossible, but succeeded in controlling the orbital periodicity directly. One result, among others, was the discovery of discrepancies in the measurement of time along one and the same meridian of Solaris. Thus, the ocean was not only in a sense aware of the Einstein-Bovia theory, but it was also capable of exploiting the implications of the latter, which was more than we could say for ourselves. With the publication of this hypothesis, the scientific world was torn by one of the most violent controversies of the century, revered and universally accepted theories. Foundered, the specialist literature was swamped by outrageous and hysterical treatises. Sentient ocean or gravity controlling colloid, the debate became a burning issue. Well, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed now. So have a good night, guys. Sorry.